think these microphones might be a little bit loud. A little attention to the public out there. There are extra copies of the agenda itself on the podium. Only a limited amount of the entire packet were printed just to save paper.
Okay, welcome to the February 22nd meeting of the Planning Commission. We do have a quorum here, so we're good to go. We have a request from Ms. Gamble to make a change to the agenda tonight.
Yes, Commissioner Gaddy, I would like to revisit our schedule meeting issue. I would like to discuss that.
Okay, so we will add that agenda item to. We will. Is it? That's right. We'll add that agenda item to after number 5, if that works for everyone. Okay. Do we need?
You should put that under new business. Yeah. 4A.
Okay, we'll make that item 4A under new business. Okay, we are going to.
You're going to need to get a motion for the amended agenda. Yeah.
I make that motion.
I second it.
All in favor? And we're all aye.
The mics were changed to be always on. When you hit them, they're now a toggle. That's why they're not working right. So just hit them once, they'll be on, then hit it again so it'll be off.
So red is on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, on the agenda, we have a public hearing, but we're going to have our public comment first to give Mr. Mahan some time to come in for the public hearing.
Madam Chair,
And, yes, Mr. Voigt, please.
Okay, yeah, I had asked the chair if I could make a short statement before getting too far into things. First of all, I want to welcome everybody here. Thanks for coming out. And so to clarify, I'm Jeff Voigt. I'm from council. I had served on the Planning Commission for 4 years prior. And I am back here in a non-voting capacity to try to help with some of this comprehensive plan update material. I wanted to address a couple issues and also explain a little process real quick. We have a few things on here. From what I gathered from things that I heard, there are a lot of people that are interested in the PUD section on here. So I definitely encourage you to stay through after all of your comments. Please stay through the discussion and also stay for the other item on here with the review of the comp plan chapters 9 and 10. It all kind of, in the end, will go hand in hand. And I wanted to outlay to you the process. No matter what the decisions are made, the way that those decisions are made are going to be the same. So all the discussion tonight will result in listening to your feedback, so please give it. There will be another meeting next month. We should be scheduling a work session, not a work session, a public hearing on the chapters 9 and 10 updates. That will be another opportunity to come out. I just want to be clear about that. And assuming that action is taken at that point, it would then be further on to the council to take it up at their next meeting. So we're in February now. Our public hearing at the Planning Commission would be in March, and then it would further to the council in April. At that time, if the council, even if they wanted to go as fast as possible, they would then be looking at setting their public hearing in May. And then they potentially could take action in May, but most likely June would be the earliest anything would really happen. And every meeting between now and then, whether, no matter what is presented, no matter what direction anyone feels and votes for, you will have the opportunity to come out here and address your concerns. And please do. Please continue coming. Please continue watching the streams online. And just be with us as we go through it, because we need to hear your voices if we want to act on your voices. Now, lastly, as I said, I'm here non-voting to try to assist with clarifying certain parts of this comp plan update, and hopefully add clarity to things when needed, answer questions from members of the Planning Commission, from some of council's perspective, some of the stuff that was worked on preemptively to give background on, and at times give my own opinion as well. Again, I don't have any voting power here or anything. But in clarifying some stuff as it came back, there should have gotten a bottle of water is what I should have done. We have heard you in the past, and I see some faces that I've seen before. I really do want to urge you to say everything that you're feeling when you come up to the podium, and just please stay, because I think that you'll find that we are trying to work towards a lot of what you're saying. I don't want to take the wind out of your sails, so do come up and say everything, but just please stick around. That's all I'm asking. And with that, that's all I've got.
At this time, I would like to open up the public comment portion of our meeting. If you would like to speak on a topic, please come up to the podium and state your name and your address, and we'll try to keep it to 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Peggy Hooley, and my residence is 134 Lafayette Avenue. I've been up here before, and thank y'all for having us back. I would like to express on the area for zoning behind Lafayette, 11 acres or 11 plus. I would like to see that zoned as low density only, not low density PUD. I've seen where I live on Lafayette was originally 1 acre minimal to build on. That has changed due to zonings have been changed. So I'd rather not see that happen again. We do like our open environment, country atmosphere. That's wonderful. And I've lived here. A lot of people on those streets have lived there for a long time too. I've heard one say if they start building and putting more behind us, they're going to put the house for sale. I would like not to see that happen. There is, if I remember correctly, also on the map you had the North 301 corridor. Maybe y'all could focus on that. Wouldn't affect residential or people who've been here and lived here for a good while. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Barbara Ciparano. I live at 135 Lafayette, so right across the street from Peggy. And I know that I have a lot of neighbors who've been there a long time. I'm sort of the new kid in town because we just built our house last year. And we love the small town feel of Bowling Green. I think a lot of my neighbors would echo that. And I think one of the things that contributes to that small town feel is not having PUDs. I've lived in them before. They work for some people. But I think having townhomes and that sort of living is different than what most of us are looking for when we've either lived here for a long time and stayed, or like me, came here, very recently. So I would say low density behind us, well, that might be okay, but I would definitely be against the PUD. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. What was her address? 135 Lafayette.
Good evening, and thank you for having me again. I live at 140 Lafayette Avenue. My name is Ashley Adams McGill. I'm a lifetime resident of Bowling Green, Virginia, and I've been on Lafayette probably maybe 20 years. It was hard enough seeing it get clear cut some years ago. That was rough because I enjoyed the nature and the woods behind me. I am against PUD, but I'm not against change to come to town. It just has to be the right change, and I don't feel like PUD would be the right change for the town of Bowling Green. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. My name is Arthur Hooley. I reside at 137 South Main Street. I was contacted by multiple concerned citizens of this town that couldn't be able to meet this meeting due to conflicts with their work schedules. Having previously sat on the Planning Commission, I understand the process of holding a public hearing and receiving feedback from the citizens. A task that I didn't take lightly when I was in your seat. A task that should be held with the utmost respect for the citizens of this town. After the first public hearing, it was clear to see that the citizens of this town don't want medium or high-density housing located in the downtown district. Concerns arise about property values lowering, infrastructure, and being able to support the demand, and also bill increases. I challenge each and every one of you to review the meeting minutes of previous Planning Commission meetings from before you guys were newly elected to this council, and see the concerns that arose so you can make a sound decision on this topic. One that I previously brought up was the concern with new construction already in the area. For example, Brookwood and Maury Heights. These are county citizens that utilize the infrastructure that the town has for water and sewer demands. With 200 homes located in Brookwood and roughly another 70 coming in Maury Heights, these will increase demands on our system. I'd like to now reference page 75 in the current comprehensive plan that you guys have. Under residential land use standards, your first point is ensure that overall housing densities are compatible with the capacity of public services, facilities, and utilities available or planned, and character of development in the surrounding area. I'll close with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Seeley. I live at 205 Travis Street. I too have been here to speak before on PUDs. The high density is not something that I think the town actually needs. And as Mr. Hooley stated, there are a lot of considerations to be taken for utilities, be it water or sewer. The sewer plant that the town has got a unique situation in that it's got zero, and I'll call them, they don't have to measure or monitor a lot of the things that the county's wastewater treatment plant has to monitor. We actually have limits on what we can actually produce and expel. The town doesn't have those limits currently, and if you touch that plant, you will then be subject to those regulations. Water's another whole issue. We are now in a groundwater management situation throughout the Tidewater Basin, which the town is drawing water from, and those allocations are going to change over time, and they're not going up, they're going down. The other thing I'd like to say to the Planning Commission members is, you've been sent back a plan from Town Council. You can do anything you deem necessary to that plan. They voted on no portion of it. It is a complete new look at by the Planning Commission. and the planning commission has every right to look at it and make any changes that they wish. And the council said, we're sending this back to planning to have them new eyes take a fresh look at this plan before it comes back to us and a new council. So anything that's in it that you deem you don't foresee citizens agreeing with, you can change and forward with your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Good evening. My name is James Watson. I live at 145 Martin Street. My wife and I moved here from Fredericksburg a couple years back now. And we came here because we love this small town. We love the feel of it. We love the charm that exists as it is right now. When we heard this plan, we were very set against it. And after reviewing a lot of the topics that have already been brought up, dealing with water, infrastructure, and so on, I won't bother to repeat all that. But these gentlemen have made, and ladies have made good points as to the detriment that would cause to the community and our small town. So I just wanted to express that and say that we are very set against any of this high density or the PUD sort of housing coming in here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Whitney Watts. I live at 165 South Main Street, and I too am here again. I am a lifelong Caroline resident, been in Bowling Green as an adult for the last 15 years, and very much trust and know many of you here, and know that you are also looking out for the best interest of our town. And I am just a little bit unsure and unsettled by some of the misinformation that has been floating around. It is almost a mystery what's really happening. I've sat in on several meetings and been confident that I understood what was happening, and then at the end of one meeting, after there was a vote on certain parcels, at the end, after each member had voted, staff threw out an additional option. And it was like all that was undone. And I'm not trying to be difficult on this. I'm trying to understand clearly where we relate to this comprehensive plan. I understand that there were multiple other parcels that were kind of put to rest, but for whatever reason, the parcel at South Main remains a mystery. And I would just like to, I don't want to create a gossipy situation. I don't want to create war amongst neighbors. The gentleman who was proposed developing it approached my neighbor and I here, and we had a great conversation at this meeting, and I felt like we had a very clear understanding. But at this point, it just seems like it keeps coming back up through different ways. And as a citizen who tries to pay attention but has a young family that I'm also trying to manage in a full-time job, I keep feeling that perhaps there's some underhandedness happening, and I'd just like to make sure that we were being out in the open with each other on what is happening so that we can properly and at the appropriate times give feedback and have that feedback heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
My name is Linda Sullivan. I live on 161 South Main. And my concern with the PUD section for the South Main Street area would be traffic. The amount of traffic going in and out of more of a medium to high density situation, and it's coming right in, right after people are getting off of the highway. So I figure, that's not a good situation to have come down Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Second call? And final call? Okay, this ends public comment. Thank you all for your comments.
Madam Chairman, was it a public hearing for the rezoning as well, or was it just for?
That was just public.
Just public
Yeah.
hearing?
We're going to go back to that now that the gentleman was here
That's
before.
what I'm throwing in. We have a rezoning though.
Okay, so Mr. Mahan is here. Okay, we are going to go into the public hearing, ZP 2021-002, for the special use permit application by Bowling Green Properties for 221 North Main Street. Mr. Mahan, did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, good evening. I'm Bern Mahan. I represent the partnership that owns 211 North Main Street. And we've had the property for a number of years. It was originally purchased as a commercial duplex. Over time, we lost our commercial tenant and approached the town about a mixed-use zoning, which we got, and we subsequently updated the upstairs, turned it into a residential unit, which has been very successful. After 2 years of trying to find a commercial tenant, we found a residential tenant in 2 weeks. So now we have a vacancy in the first floor. The commercial tenant has left. Been looking for a tenant for over 2 years with very little interest. And so last year we changed the zoning. The town approved the zoning back to residential. So we hope to get the special use so we can improve the downstairs, renovate it, update it. And we already have a tenant that's interested in that property.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion or questions for Mr. Mahan? No. Would someone like to make a motion to recommend to town council to approve the?
Madam Chair, the public hearing.
I'm sorry? Go ahead. Oh, for the 221 North Main? No.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Is it 221? Mr. Mullen said 211.
Yes, I caught that too.
The application reads 221 North Main. Is that correct, Mr. Mahan, 221?
Okay, I would like to open it up to public comment. Okay, if there are no comments, do I hear a motion?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we pass this on to town council.
Okay.
Second.
Can we please get a clarification on what is being passed on? Is it a recommendation to approve?
A recommendation to approve the special use for the property at 221 North Main Street.
Okay, thank you.
Second that revision.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passed. Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Has the commission had a chance to look at the minutes, and are there any revisions or suggestions to the minutes? Can I get a motion from someone to approve the minutes for the January 25th, 2021 meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to new business. It's proposed PUD revision.
Okay, I guess that's me. All right. So where to, oh, let me get this bottle of water real quick, excuse me.
No, thank you.
If you do, I have a couple extra. Okay. Yeah. My apologies. Okay, PUD. I think we're going to have to talk about this in like two steps. I do obviously want to acknowledge that, you know, this has an impact on a particular piece of property that our current public that is here is all interested in. We need to talk about it both in respecting that, I suppose, but the discussion of it is, most of the stuff that we talk about is not supposed to be talked about in order to affect anything specific. It's supposed to be part of the greater comprehensive plan. And when we make those decisions, we are supposed to take how they impact everything and individual at the same time. So in doing that, I think I need to, I guess, revisit some of the discussion that we had in the past about the comprehensive plan as a whole, or the future land use map as a whole. PUD, and of itself, planned unit development, is one method of zoning. And again, for everybody up here and down there, you know, there is a differentiation between zoning and land use. So your land uses, depending on what those land uses are, say commercial, say mixed use, public, residential, all that, they have what would be considered compatible uses. So like, for example, here, you say commercial, you know, that could be compatible with B1, it could be compatible with B2, and both of those have different things, and different special uses as well. So with residential, there is low, there is the low moderate, there's moderate high, there's just high. One of the things that we'll be talking about later on this evening is our comp plan was lacking an actual definition of R3, which would be your highest density. Now, there is not much area in town that is even currently R3, much less zoned in the current or future use map as high density. There's a couple right to our right over here. There's some high density, and PUD is one of several tools available for trying to manage your zoning. Generally, yes, I agree with everybody. Generally, the point of a PUD is to you know, get your big clusters, your apartments, your condos, and the like. And yes, it's generally meant as high density. I agree with that. And you know, on a personal note, that's not what I would be implying for what you all are here for. However, what we're talking about specifically tonight is not the overall definition of PUD. What you have in your packet is the existing definitions in the zoning ordinance of what PUD is. And I should probably flip over to it. So that is our current language, and it, I'm not even really trying to say that we should really be doing anything to change what's on there unless any of you sees something that is very glaringly obvious that we should clarify / clean up. The point for bringing this up is that we are also discussing Chapter 9 and 10. Chapter 9 and 10 have everything about our land use definitions. Yes, it does have the land use map, and it has all of our goals, objectives, and growth plans. So certain things about our zoning ordinance kind of need to be addressed at the same time. If our intent is to forward Chapters 9 and 10 on to the council to approve it, we should have all of the supporting things that we can also address to submit at the same time so it's clean. Specifically for tonight, bringing PUD up here is because one of the, as I was saying, possible uses as far as our future land use definitions was having PUD as one of the possible applications in a moderate density land use. So areas that are plotted out to be that low / moderate density, one of the, 3 options that would be available for a developer to ask for, PUD would be possibly one of those. Not definitely, because don't forget, the future land use map is not a rezoning. That is a forward-thinking thing where if a developer were to come in, they could try one of those. Now, obviously, the gut reaction to that is a developer would come in and they would go for the highest density because they could get the highest amount of houses. That's obviously a concern. With adding PUD there, to try to be more succinct, we're looking at 2 separate sets of definitions. We're looking at the land use definition and the zoning definition. The zoning definition we're talking about is the PUD, which you'll find that definition in the zoning map, but specifically we have it in our packet tonight. The land use definition that we should be discussing relating to it is the moderate density definition. The high density one is already covered, and really the only area that we're really talking about the high density would be, as was mentioned earlier, the 301 corridor, which I can't tell everybody that we do want to focus a lot of our growth on the annex area out there. But anyway, with moderate density, that zoning, whether it be the R1, the R2, or the PUD, which are the currently allotted abilities on the proposed land use map, those things are all tied to the moderate density. So what that means is the restrictions in the Comp Plan Chapter 9 that define and limit all zonings are a requirement for that zoning to meet. So with moderate density, you have 4 to 8 dwellings per acre. A zoning of PUD does not override that. It just approaches that math in a different way. Same thing with the R2, same thing with the R1. And so going from that, I will temporarily segue into, because I may as well use examples here, I'll use that property. That property as is currently zoned R1, and it could have, by right, 39 houses on it. And there's not exactly anything we could particularly do about that because it is a by right use.
As R1.
Yes, yes, as R1 it would have that. As R2, it would, well, the lot sizes are the same. The square footage for your lot size is the same. So my understanding is that you would also be limited to 39 there. Now, with an R2 zoning, with R1, it's 1 to 4 dwellings per acre. And in R2, it's 4 to 8, but the lot sizes are the same. Now, I will now back up again to re-explain that the point of having R2 PUD in our former discussions, the implementation of that is not for more houses. It is for more option for the types of things that can go there. And I'll try to be brief and sane. Under R1, you can only have houses, basically. There's some exception to that. So I will give the example of a nursing home, a retirement community, like assisted living, that kind of thing. Those two things cannot exist under R1. That would require R2. And again, minimum lot sizes are the same in either case. So you could say that you want to limit your amount of houses, but by right is by right anyway. So like, again, going back to that specific property, it's still 39 houses, which is honestly probably more than what a lot of the folks would want regardless, from what I've been hearing. And depending on your perspective, that's unfortunately nothing that one could do anything about. Which is one of the reasons why I liked the idea of having more options, such as, well, if we give it the ability to have the R2, then we could put an assisted living home down there. Well, we could see if an assisted living home could go down there, and that would be nice. That would take up less area. So that example was a little bit easier. So now as I try to explain the implementation of a PUD in that, it's a little bit understandably murkier. So with a PUD, their intention, my understanding, the way I would do it, obviously I'm only one voice, but they allow for smaller lot sizes at the expense of you have to make up for that lot size with open space elsewhere. So when we were originally talking about the idea of PUD on that property, offering that would allow houses farther away from the streets. And if that was the only thing, then I think it would be easy to explain to folks, like that's the intent. But I certainly understand that there is more caveats to it, because you could you then argue that, oh, okay, you're gonna put all the houses in the corner, but you're gonna put a 4-story apartment building there, and okay, I get that argument. And so that leads us to now, where we need to talk about the PUD, where, I mean, you can just strike it completely, obviously, or we can do a little more work on it and limit it. Because like I was saying, it's already limited by being under a different land use standard in the first place. So 4 to 8 dwellings per acre, well, you're not really going to get apartments on that. You get, 8 dwellings on 1 acre. It's not much for an apartment. Townhouses, I guess you could still argue under that. And so the conversation that would need to happen is, hey, we can look at our zoning ordinance, turn the pages through here, go to the end, and, like trying to cut to the chase, add a line on the bottom, no apartments, within low moderate density housing. We just put those restrictions in there. If you have a moderate zoning, and you still want to allow the ability to sequester the houses away from the streets, okay, but it does say right here, it could say right there, well, we're going to put these other restrictions on you if you do that. That's one way to go. If you don't want apartments, we just say, you cannot have apartments on moderate density zoning. You cannot have condominiums, you can't have townhouses. The open space requirements are going to be harsher, 60% open space requirement. Certainly not, this wasn't, the point of bringing this up was to say, hey, we acknowledge that, those concerns are, if you have PUD within a moderate density area, like we're hearing concerns of that will lead to high density. Therefore, we can take a look at it and be like, okay, what do we need to do to ensure that, no, PUD is not high density if used in a moderate density place. As is, yeah, it reads that way. It reads that way as it is. Unless you connect every little dot and be like, well, it does say moderate density is 4 to 8 dwellings, so we're okay. Well, we can make it clearer. We can make it cleaner. And we can do a better job of it than, well, everything I was just saying, where it probably got a little bit muddy. So if you guys got any questions, go ahead and ask me if I'm losing you.
I guess I'm unclear because you're talking about moderate density homes, but the existing is R1, that's low density, correct?
Okay, now we're talking about specific property again, and yes, the answer to that question is yes. Now, I'll bring back the future use map, which we're referencing in this. It was not sent back to us. The council did not take action. The proper procedure of that, because it's still sitting there for council to take action on. So somebody could technically go at the next meeting, even though it's not on the agenda yet. A motion could be made to accept that as presented and it go through. They're supposed to take some action on it, to defer it, and then what that would have triggered is if they would have denied it, like, say we're not gonna do it, we would have had, I think it's 60 days, it might be 90, to do something new. So like officially, like it hasn't been kicked back to us to do something. Of course, you can send all kinds of recommendations that you want to council. That's not a problem, but like in the official way, the future land use map is still in the hands of council.
So the official land use map that they have,
The proposed
map is the one that was approved 3-1 by the Planning Commission in November. Am I correct?
That's correct,
on that?
yes.
And that map, because it has been voted on, is the one that is set in stone that is going to be used when we finish.
Not set in stone at all, no. It's waiting, there has been no vote on it. When it was up to be voted on, there was a little bit of discussion and then it was tabled.
When I say set in stone, I mean as far as our action on it, it's a done deal.
That would be.
Unless they send it back to us.
That would be more proper. You can, of course, two ways. You can at any time get some consensus and send a letter as a planning commission to the council. And obviously you as a individual can go make your voice heard at a council meeting. But no, the council is supposed to take action on the items they were presented.
Who advised the Planning Commission when this all came about to forward, to deal with the future use map before we dealt with the comp plan? Because it was my understanding that the comp plan drives the future use map. And it seemed, this was my understanding, I may be wrong, so give me clarification, because
Well, I mean,
I
to
just
directly
thought that
answer the
you would do
question,
that
it was the
first.
former town manager that started that ball rolling about at this point, 24 months ago? Quite a while ago. And yeah, that was at the initial direction of the former town manager. It is not there. You can, different perspectives and different ways that people like to work on it. There are obviously thousands of localities in the states here, and some will do the entire comp plan at once, some will do parts of it, some will do individual parts of chapters, some will do updates to parts of chapters. We're starting to take a little bit of a different approach, I guess, now by doing the entire Chapter 9 and Chapter 10, and that is intentionally to support basically the idea, which I guess is what your point is, of we should do more of it at a time. Was that wrong? No. But it is just a matter of opinion. And apparently, more people were of the opinion to do more of it at a time with more supporting documentation. And so that's kind of where we are. So they tabled that use map to wait until, well, we have this Chapter 9, this Chapter 10, and in my opinion, also this little PUD discussion, because that PUD is on that use map. So we may as well have everything fitting. Yeah, so, matter of opinion, and, you know, after having gone through it myself, maybe I probably would have preferred to have done it a different way so that we wouldn't be where we are, where there is some ire, and, you know, do more of it at a time next time.
When you change the map, shouldn't you be changing the map after you've changed the written wording in your chapters for the comprehensive plan? Why are you changing the map and then going back and rewording the comprehensive plan?
Well, that's the very thing I'm talking about. That's the difference of opinion. I guess the bottom line to say in it was, whereas, well, let's take, let's take that piece of property then. I would be possibly okay with, say, the nursing home aspect. I was just talking about that. That would require R2, okay? So therefore, I was okay with the moderate density identifier because it would need to be moderate density to be able to put R2 on it. Now, that's where I can be subject to the criticism of not doing the other stuff, because in doing that, it leaves the ability open for the very next day a developer to come in and say, I want to do blank. Okay, well, that wasn't my intention, and we're still in the, like, we were always going to be doing this. This was on the docket to be doing now. It's just that we were given that to do first. So even though I fully believed in it, and still do, I recognize that all those dots that I can sit here and connect them for, and maybe do a good job, maybe do a bad job, you know, maybe convince a person to agree with me, maybe not. But I can't do it. But yes, had we done chapter 9 first, chapter 10 first, then it would be easier to explain those things. And so yes, I agree with you, and probably in the future I would have preferred to do it in the other order. At the time, it was an effort at the time, again, almost 2 years ago, when it was initially given to us to do. It was part of a economical preparation kind of thing. This really was intended to be done a long time ago, from what I gathered, but we don't have that town manager anymore, so I can't tell you everything that was in his head. But like it was a combo effort of, if we get, as soon as we get the future land use finally passed, that is a much more robust tool that our economic development authority can use when they're talking to developers and whatnot. Now, a developer, when they're looking to do something, they're going to look at the future land use map first, and then they'll look at the other stuff. So, as an example, say the mixed use part up top, say we got some big, big box retailer coming in, they'd be like, oh, that's a nice, couple 100-acre mixed use area. I could go and put this, whole shopping center in. So they'd come in here and they'd talk to our EDA, get our director involved, maybe talk to our town manager, and then maybe put together a site plan that we would see at the planning commission. And after they would have those initial talks, that's when they would then come in and bump up against any restrictions that we would have after that. And so the future land use map is kind of the first stop. And so that was why it was done first. But there was no point where the other things weren't supposed to get done too. So that was always supposed to happen. And thankfully we are. And I don't mind at all that the land use map did not go through yet. It's still sitting there waiting for this other documentation. I'm fine with that. We weren't gonna, the way times are, well, first of all, the way times are with the pandemic, this has dragged out a lot farther because we weren't able to have meetings. It was hard to get people in here to hear their feedback. And so now we can a little bit more. People are feeling better about coming out. And again, I'm glad that you are. But we would have been a little further down the line otherwise. But, we are, I think, course correcting. We're getting all the stuff that we need to be getting done. It is going to be not necessarily any smoother. It's been bumpy, but we are getting the other parts. Chapter 9 and 10 are very important, and we're going to be talking about them shortly. And again, stick around so that you can hopefully understand that. And on that note, tonight going to be a lot of stuff. I'll be talking a lot. But, because it's this kind of forum, it's not exactly a back and forth, but any one of you, my contact information is out there. You can ask me directly. I'll give you the Bowling Green card that I have. Talk to any of us, and we'll sit down with you. We'll hear everything, and maybe if you have questions, get you a better understanding of what things are, or what we feel, or what our intents are. Engage with us, please. But I mean, besides that history part of it, Sandra, what any other?
It's just hard for me to understand how you're going to take a one-page sheet and don't have the written documentation to go with it for people to look at this and then go to the written documentation to see how it's set out. I just can't see doing a map and not doing the definitions in the written documentation first.
Oh, no, I definitely hear that. It's your opinion on it is very clear, and I'm not going to dispute. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, because I don't think that you're wrong at all.
And also, if a property is zoned R1, anyone can come in, pay the necessary fees, go through the necessary applications, and take that piece of property all the way up to mixed use if they wanted to. We don't have to start on the map at mixed use.
Well, if okay, and yeah, I know you were asking me about that earlier. Okay, I'll let me go down that so that everybody's up to pace on that one. Yes, absolutely. Anyone that has any property of any zoning can come in at any time and fill out an application to change it to anything that they wish. Well, anything that's in our zoning ordinance that they could. Any residential could try to become like industrial. We have no industrial in town. You could take your house and come in and fill out an application to become industrial. That shouldn't get very far, though. You would be wasting your money on any residence, because currently we don't have anywhere on our future land use map meant for industrial. Far less any other things. The future land use map is intended as a tool for a person that would potentially develop to take up that land and then change it. Anyone that has, let's segue over to the 301 area instead. A lot of that area is farmed right now, and that is a very low tax rate on that. So right now, it would be very beneficial for those landowners to keep it as it is for now. The land use map, when you label it for the future that you would like it to develop into mixed use, which could be anything from an industrial park, an office park, low density, moderate density, high density, any of those things of which can be part of it, you put that on your future land use map in order for developers to see, oh, they do want development out there. That farmland, they don't intend it to be farmland forever. However, it's never good for the locality to just go and upzone it for them. Like if I were to go to those landowners and be like, hey, your farmland, we would like it to be a shopping center. I'm going to go and rezone it B2 for you. That would instantly raise their taxes. They don't want that. I don't think we need to do that. So we use the future land use map as the tool to say, this is our targeted directed growth. So again, going back to what you're getting at with that, R1 in most places is applicable. Down there, again, the reason it was given the low moderate was for the ability to have a nursing home. If we only have it as, or the other options, I'm not saying that we, the Planning Commission, we, the council, want a nursing home there. I'm just using that as an example. By having those options there, it gives those options a perceived use. If you just label in the future land use map as R1, you're not going to really necessarily get anything other than that, because they got to come in. Any developer that submits a site plan to the Planning Commission, that site plan is supposed to be compatible with the comprehensive plan. So if you get an application that wants to change this thing to that thing, if that future land use map doesn't match that change, you're supposed to say no, or have a really, really good reason. And so that's the reason why the future land use map is usually not matching the current use map. Now that said, when you want to protect these things for different people that come in and say, hey, I have a lot of concerns for this property or that property, that's why you got to take a look at things like that, yeah. And so when you hear from a bunch of people that they don't want 60, 70, 80 homes in their backyard, you can say, okay, well, I know that this looks like that, so let's put this in there. And it's like, no, because of this line, we can't do that. No apartments? I agree with you. Let's put this thing, no apartments in that type of situation. And that's the point. Now, can you just say no instead? Yeah, of course you can just say no instead. You can just say, okay, that's got to stay that way. But then you're limiting yourself. So you can take what I would call easy way and very much, limit things, say, okay, let's backtrack, let's do that there. Okay, that's viable, but it does limit you. It takes your growth, and it, at worst, backtracks. At most, doesn't do anything. And again, if you want to talk about specific lots, that area still has a by right uses of 39 you can't do anything about anyway. And I would rather, if I can, try to do something about it, because what I heard from the folks was, they want to preserve as much of that as possible. So if a developer, if you only had R1 down there, developer come in, they'd want to maximize their ROI. So they want to put the full 39. I think we can probably all agree that they would want to get as many houses as they can. So they want the 39. Maybe, and it's not a maybe. It would come before the Planning Commission, and you'd have to approve, recommend to approve, recommend to deny anything anyway. But if you had more options for that potential developer to come in and say they want to do, then you could still say yes or no to those things. And so, again, going back to, say, an adult living center, okay, you would have hopefully less units of those. Okay, those need to be managed. And instead of 39 houses, maybe you're looking at 20. And so maybe there are 20 houses surrounded by better greenery. Now, I can't speak for any of the people, but that maybe could be better than the 39 houses that we can't say no to. But, that can be differentiated. Those are questions that are up in the air, and that's why those are things that we should discuss, not automatically knee-jerk to, and try to make the best decision and engage with the people and try to have all the information out there and get the best decision. I think it's a really important thing that everybody understands the by right aspect to it when we're talking about that particular lot. And again, I don't want to talk, this conversation can't be only about that parcel. We do need to actually be talking about our zoning text, because obviously this affects that, but it affects the overall comprehensive plan as well. So that's why I said, we have this planned urban development text that already exists. There's nothing inherently wrong about it. There's hardly anywhere currently in town that it can be used as is. And in the proposed future land use map, it would only be applicable as is in the mixed use area on 301 and the very few high density areas on there. Because again, the reason this is before us tonight is to say as is would be detrimental to the moderate density area. So if we were to consider the PUD inside the moderate density area, it needs to be changed. Do you follow that? Well, by all means, tell me where I lost you. Okay, we have the text for the PUD in front of us. It's always been there for however long, I guess 2008 when this thing was done last. And it's never been used. And it ultimately, at the end of the day, it probably never will. Out there on 301, it would apply. It would make sense out there. It could be used in the R3 next to us here, potentially. I'm talking about high-density areas. The PUD is intended for high-density areas. There's very few in town. The proposed extra way to use it was in a way to buffer moderate density areas. And so, if that is a way to entertain it, it needs to be modified to limit itself to do that. So I'll give the example again. I'll use that piece of property again. I don't really want to, but again, that area under R1 can have 39 houses on it. And I really hope that's right, because I said it a bunch of times, and if I'm wrong about that, I'm going to be frustrated. But from what I read, 39 houses, no choice, okay? Under PUD, no more houses than that, okay? It's important. That's what we need to ensure. The point of the PUD would be, okay, 12,000 square feet minimum lot, all right? That's what's in existence right now for R1, okay? That's your minimum lot size. The point of a PUD is to have a lower minimum lot size, all right? And so it's based off of math of the lot that it's on. So let's just say that maybe the minimum lot size would be 4,000 square feet, and this is not exact, okay? So with a PUD, you have a smaller minimum lot size, and then that other square footage is made up in green space. So the point of the PUD is to isolate / sequester the housing away from where you don't want it and force that green space where you do want it. That sounds like it's useful to me, but it needs language supporting it. We can also just throw it away. But when I outline it like that, and I really only mean it like that, because it needs other language to make that the point. My point in bringing it up is not to have apartments. My point in bringing it up is not to have anything like that. You know, we do talk about the apartments too much. That's not happening. We don't want that. So, you know, is that a tool you want to have? If so, put the language in there that restricts it. Put the language in there that makes it compatible with the things that people are already concerned about. If, you know, we need clear language, you know, we have to run it by the attorney and everything, but clear language that makes it so that if you were to use that, you can't do anything more than you otherwise would. It's just you have the benefits that do work with it. Or you toss it. But under no means do we put this in there as it is. You know, because that would be making it a weapon against other things, and that would poison everything and mess it up. So the question, basically, bottom line comes down to, do you want an extra tool that you would then have to do a whole lot of diligence and make sure that it is just a tool and not something that you could sneak something through, or a subsequent planning commission could sneak something through that the current planning commission doesn't want, assuming you're all of the same mind. So again, for example, if you put in there that you can't have an apartment, then a future planning commission wouldn't be able to do that either, as in put in an apartment. Or you just, you know, you remove the PUD as even an option. Either of those. I would be for both of those. I know that keeping it is confusing, and that's why it would take some language. That's why it would be multiple meetings trying to figure it out. And yeah, let's have some more discussion than just me.
Can I just say real quick
Please.
that the comp plan is revisited every 5 to 10 years. So if you, as Jeff says, you don't want a PUD, you don't want MRI, you don't want whatever acronym it is. In 5 to 10 years, when the comp plan is redone, that may change. That may actually be put back in. I just want to make it clear that Just because it's happening now, 5 to 10 years down the road, different planning commission or whomever may want to make that change. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, it constantly has to be
Okay,
updated.
well, I want to make that clear if I can, because it can be confusing. The comp plan is revisited. So
Right.
everything that we're doing now, parts of it may change, just so
Right.
that makes sense.
And I mean, you bring up a good point to remind everyone about. Our comp plan is significantly out of date and was supposed to have been gone over a while ago. And so that's why we're trying so hard to dig into it. And everything we're doing is very vitally important. And it's supposed to be done every 5 years, and it hasn't. We're addressing that now. And it will, hopefully, because one of those updates is Chapter 10 is all about the items that we need to be doing. And we're trying to strengthen the language in that chapter to hold not only the Planning Commission, but all of the body of government more accountable, to keep track of things better, and when things need to be updated, actually do it. So I would look for the comp plan to be updated on time in the future. I can hope. And when that happens, every time, a comp plan update is a very involved process, and so at those times, it'll be the same idea. We'll be talking about it, we'll discuss it a few times, but before taking any action, we have to involve the public. And so there will be public hearings both at the Planning Commission level and at the council level. So there will be repeated times, and there will be information out there for the public to understand. Just like tonight. Like tonight, I'm obviously glad that everyone is here. Next month should be the time where we have the official public hearing for these chapters that we're going to talk about later. Go ahead, Tina.
I've received several phone calls from several of the citizens the past week. And I guess one of the things that I had brought up to me was, I believe it's Mr. Beasley owns this parcel of property.
Yes.
Okay. He made the comment at the December meeting that if it remained R1, the 39 homes that you mentioned, that he would have to sell these homes for upwards of $500,000 apiece, and that he wouldn't make any money. So what you're telling me is you want to put a buffer in and still only allow them to put 39 homes in. I guess what the question from the public is, that doesn't square. 39 homes is 39 homes. And so the implication is that there would be a greater building ratio on that property. That's why I'm mentioning this. This was one of the questions.
Yes, well, that could be discussed. And as a planning commission, you all could say, yes, you could say that. My point in bringing up the PUD the way I did, like the PUD the way it exists, would allow more homes. That's kind of the normal point of a PUD. And that's the part, beyond anything, that everyone, I'm assuming, probably shouldn't do that, but it's the number of homes is the biggest thing that I think people are disliking. The effect on the utilities, the effect on the traffic, the noise, and all that. So, I don't think that us pursuing more homes is what the people are, I think that's one of the things that they'd be upset about. And so I wasn't really thinking of that as the way to go. I see your mic on.
Well, I just want to say on the word pursuing that you used, we're not pursuing anything. There is no development. Nobody has a vested right in the property. We're just trying to get through the comp plan. No one is developing anything. No one's building townhomes, apartments, PUD, or anything else. Again, there is no vested interest that anyone has in this property. Mr. Beasley wants to do something with it, great. But nothing, no one, there is no development and has never been anybody to say, we're putting 39 homes or 80. That is innuendo and information that has been spread around. We're just trying to get through the comp plan.
There was never a site plan application submitted, that
Never.
much is true, yes.
There was never, ever anything like that.
There was,
There's absolutely a site plan here, so
We,
application, but there was a site plan.
yeah, I said
Where is
application.
the
There was
site
never an
plan?
application submitted. But yeah, there was a site plan, and it was,
There was a site
yes, yes.
You're
Well, there
talking
was
about
a
11 years
preliminary,
ago?
I forget the word he used, but yes. And that was one that everybody saw, and everybody had some very strong opinions on, and for better or worse, I guess I'm glad that it got out there. Generally, I mean, it's not supposed to be out there as much when it's not an official application submitted, but it got you all involved, so good.
Wasn't there a developer here 6, 7, 8 months ago when y'all were talking in the audience to help you?
Yes, very coincidentally, as soon as we started on the comp plan, there was a developer that started coming to the meetings.
Is he the same one that had the site plan?
Yeah, yeah.
Does he have a name?
it's never been submitted.
Right.
But if he was at the meetings giving y'all input, doesn't he have a name?
It doesn't matter for us what his name is because there's nothing been submitted. We're not doing anything with a site plan.
I have another question.
Sure.
On the fact that you said every 5 years the comp plan changes, so it's been 13 years.
Well, it doesn't have to change, but
Yeah,
you're supposed to
it's been
revisit it.
13
Yes.
years before
Yes.
it's the first time it's been revisited. And the future use map that's from 2008 shows 2 properties in this area that we have now put low, moderate density on. The proposed is only 1. So is it all owned by 1 person?
No, it's 2 properties.
So
You
why
can,
is it-
kind of, it's rather faint, the other line.
Okay. And the other question is, if the one larger piece of land was developed, is not the right-of-way on Lafayette to that property? At the moment? I mean, I guess he could go in off of South Main, but at the
Well,
moment.
as far as right-of-way, that would be stuff that would, let's say that there was a site plan submitted, that would have to be gone over by the planning commission. Anything that would do that, and my opinion is I would hope that the planning commission would not allow access through Lafayette. I would hope that they would force it on Main or try to convince VDOT to allow it from 301. Good luck with that. But not like, site plan specific questions like that's kind of case by case. And it's because it didn't get that far, the thing that people saw, I don't have a copy of it. With that site plan, it wasn't given to me. It was here's what we were maybe thinking, but we're not really thinking it.
Except somebody is thinking about it. I was
Well,
here at the
yeah.
December meeting, not as a council member, but this gentleman, Mr. Beasley, attended. And if I recall this correctly, he wanted to organize a work session with the council. And I never understood what the purpose of that work session would be.
Well, I can't speak for him, but it sounded to me like he was very concerned because that was after the developer was no longer interested, okay? And so Mr. Beasley was at a loss because he thought that I believe there was a contingent offer on his property. And so if the developer's not developing, he's not selling his property, he wants to sell his property. We can all understand why he would want to do that. And so if that situation is falling through on his end, then he's going to wonder why. So, from that example, I would like to say to everyone, whenever you have a vested interest, keep coming to the meetings, because it would have been helpful for him to have been at all the meetings so that he could be in and give his input He's only been, as far as I know, at that particular meeting. He wanted a work session because he was concerned about what to do with his property. We informed him at the time that what he just needs to do is come talk to staff to see what his options are, which his options are fairly limited. You know, he can sell his property to somebody, but any developer that would buy his property would probably have a contingent offer that would mean that we're not going to buy your property until we know we can build blank. You know, and in the case of what happened before, from my understanding, that wasn't able to happen, so the property didn't sell. You know, I can't really speak to things I wasn't a part of, but that's what it seemed.
So is that whole discussion related to this particular parcel being designated PUD for future use?
No, I mean, from what, it's hard because, like, there were discussions both here and at the Planning Commission, and as unfortunate as it was that it was all distracted by these potential developments, this process of updating the comp plan started before that. All these things we had meetings with other property owners, we had meetings with the EDA. This was happening before that, but then, you know, we had that possible development thing came in and kind of really messed with the optics of everything. I guess I can be happy at this point. Like, everything else in the plan is nice. We don't really seem to be getting a lot of negative feedback towards the rest, just down there. But you know, it was just colored, you know, badly, you know, by things that happened. And you know, I think it's a lot of misunderstanding as well as misinformation, and I think just a lack of clarity. Yeah, another big example is on our agenda tonight, we're going to be talking about the utilities, and we're going to be putting into place restrictions that limit growth based off how much we're using the utilities. You know, so just other restrictions to put in there. But you know, but bottom line is it's very difficult, you know, when I get wordy like this to follow and feel that I'm, you know, and trying to support these things. And it's difficult to always convey the thoughts that one is trying to solve problems.
I got another question.
Sure.
The map says, taking into consideration Bowling Green Meadows, moderate/high-density residential, parentheses, R3 PUD.
Yes. That would only be...
Then you go to our chapter 9 that we're reviewing. Moderate density residential is R2 and R3. So why don't they match?
Say that again?
This area here, the brown,
Right.
is saying it's moderate.
Okay, I think
Which is
I know what you're asking.
R3.
Yeah, sure.
It's moderate and high density R3 and PUD, but moderate density is R2 and R3.
Well, I can explain that.
That's why I said.
Yeah, sure, okay.
The wording in the map don't
Well,
go together.
it's conveying that information. So on the map, the
Right.
land use map, so remember, we got to separate land use from zoning, okay? So land use, and this is where it's further confusing because we have both a current land use map and a future land use map. Okay, so first, the current land use map. The current land use map is going to have the exact land use marked on every piece of property. So this property will be public, my property would be R1, yours would be R1, and Main Street would be B1. Okay, well, there I go making the very mistake that I'm trying to correct. I just used the zoning when I should have used the land use. Okay, that's the problem. That's why it's confusing. This is public, my land would be low density, and up there would be commercial. Okay, and that's how we have to think of it like that. Now, if you take across the street from me, Courthouse Lane Apartments there, okay, that area is going to be high density right now, okay, because it's apartments. On the future land use map, it is set aside as that, I'm partially colorblind, but I do believe this is brown, moderate/high density. Now, that is meant as two possible uses. Okay, so you can utilize moderate or high when you're assigning things that come in. That is a way of not pigeonholing. So like if you were, so the future land use can be moderate to high density, meaning a person could come in, and then what are the compatible uses for moderate to high density? Well, anything that meets high density, i.e. R3 or PUD, or anything that meets moderate density, which would be R2, or the possibly changed version of PUD that would be considered the moderate version, okay? And so that's how you would have the future land use map give you the options of doing things, because we don't go on the future land use map and pick B1, B2, we pick more of a spectrum, okay? Just like that whole mixed use area up there, rather than mixed use, we could have done, like in the way that you have the moderate high density residential or the low moderate density residential, we could have just put low, moderate, high density residential / commercial / industrial / this / that, but we utilize the wording mixed use and then have a definition for mixed use that means that. We could have separated these things some more and you know, like, because we have moderate high and we have low moderate. And then we also have low, okay? We don't have moderate by itself and we don't have high by itself. And that's so that we can bridge things across. You know, we can use low moderate when we know that we don't want high density. We can use moderate high when we like high density, but would also take a, you know, nice cul-de-sac or something. That's the intent of implementation. That answer? And then the point of updating chapter 9 and 10 is to make all the language cohesive.
Right. But if we're changing this now, it doesn't match this.
No, that's the whole point of changing that.
This is what we're working on though.
Yes.
And this is the changes we've already made.
Mm-hmm.
This says moderate density is R2 and R3, but it's not on the map. So how does anybody know what's what?
Moderate is on the map.
Not as, you've got it as R3 PUD, and then you've got moderate and low density as R1 and 2 in PUD, but there's an R3 in the definition of moderate density. So where am I lost?
In the compatible usage aspect of it, R3 is not considered a compatible use of low moderate. In the low area and in the moderate area, R3 is not a compatible use. Low density is supposed to be 1 to 4 dwellings per acre. Moderate density is up to 4 to 8 dwellings per acre, and high density is, Melissa, is it 12 for high density? Something like that?
You're asking about the houses per acre?
Yeah.
It depends on the water or sewer, but.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Could go up to as high
All right.
as.
And so by saying that we want to isolate a place as low or moderate, we're saying we don't want more than 8 dwellings per acre at all. Like, no way. If you were to have an area on the way this map is, an area that says low moderate density in that, what is that, caramel or orange or something? Okay. Anything there means that you would, any of the zonings that would go into that area need to be compatible with low or moderate. That's what that's trying to say. And so the compatible usages with low density are going to be R1. And that's the only one compatible. Well, agricultural would be compatible. And then with moderate, the only compatible usages would be, well, you can do R1 in moderate, and then R2, and then maybe, depending on how you change the language, the PUD.
It says R3 here, and we went over that last. Where's R3 coming? It's not.
I think,
See, that's what's confusing me.
Well, the R3 should not be a moderate density designation. That should only be under the height. Oh, just saying to make sure you use your mic. Well, that area there doesn't have the red text on it, so I'm going to hopefully make a guess that's correct and say that's one of the things that was supposed to change. Like, you see right below it, we have the new, let me move to that on here. What page is that on what you have?
I'm on page 20
Okay,
of our revisions,
cool.
which is just behind the PUD. Moderate density residential.
Okay.
Zoning designations is R2 and R3.
All right, well, that is, I don't know, maybe that's a typo or something. That's because R3, Planning Commission, any of the rest of you, do you remember that we were trying to say that R3 should be a moderate density compatible use? I don't.
That was on the current comp plan. That is current comp plan language.
Okay, and so, yeah, because it's not red here, but that certainly needs to be, I think, struck.
R3.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, because R3 is meant for high density, and so that, like the next section, all in red, the new definition for high density, that one's correct. You know, that's showing compatible use of R3 and PUD. That's right. Yeah, and you know, keep in mind we're kind of skipping ahead. This was like a later thing on the agenda, but you know, good catch because that's not correct. We would be going over this then. All right, make note of that, because when we get to the Chapter 9 part of the agenda, we'll mark that and we'll correct that. That just needs to be changed, because that doesn't seem right. So that's just further iteration of the chapters that we're going over, so that's good. You know, that said, like, okay, let's try to curtail spending way too much more time on this. The point of it, okay? Look, it's two questions. One, do you think that a specially tailored version of PUD could be utilized as a positive thing? And if you were to do it, you would have to do a bunch of language to make it work, okay? That's your first thing, all right? And if you don't want to do that, you stop there, and that's fine. And if you did, then you got to get that language for it. That's all.
Jeff,
yes.
you made the comment earlier about Mr. Beasley coming back and reapplying and being persistent. Our citizens have been persistent. They have come to these meetings. Some of these people have been at these meetings 2 and 3 and 4 times. They have all made it very clear that they wanted it kept R1. So it doesn't, to them, it doesn't matter what the description of PUD is. They don't want a nursing home. They don't want a buffer. They have all very clearly, I've attended all the meetings. I've watched stuff on YouTube to go back and make sure that I heard what I thought I heard. Every single person has reiterated they want it kept R1, and they feel like the Planning Commission just dismisses their wishes. And that's what it boils down to.
No, that makes sense. That's fair. I certainly have some stuff to say to that. First of all, I'm fine tossing the PUD. It's okay. The second, it's hard being up here in that I can't just turn my head and say, and have a one-on-one with everybody. I'd like to. And, you know, we were hearing from them as you were just talking. That's cool. I do hear that. We're not supposed to have the back and forth up here. And I wish, and this is a challenge to those that are listening, that people would approach me more, because I would like to get an answer to, and this is an invitation at this moment, no, but when I say that that piece of property, you know, can be made 39 houses and we can't really do anything about it, and I have this, hey, here's one tool thing that might, you know, be, I'd like to hear from people why they don't like that through a dialogue rather than a simple, well, I don't like PUD. And I think that's a fair thing to ask. And yeah, if everybody doesn't want it, I don't want to do it. It's fine. I'm not going to get anything out of developing that land. So it's cool.
But you just told us it's already done. This was already voted on. We're not changing the map. We're just changing the language. So this is not R1. We're not listening to the citizens because it's a PUD. So I'm hearing double talk.
Madam Chair, may I make a motion? I'd like to make a motion that we send a recommendation and/or letter to the town council to put the property at south of Lafayette's residence that borders the bypass, to make it R1 when they vote on their map. I'd like to make a recommendation and/or letter to the town council that they put that property that these citizens are talking about, which is south of Lafayette residence, that borders the 301 bypass, to R1. Because the way I understand it from Jeff, anybody can come in and make zoning requests to change anything at any time. Then the residents then at that time can come and speak to that particular petition.
Can I just also, I agree with that. However,
We have a motion on the floor.
oh,
They'd be looking for a second.
I second it.
Now you can have the discussion if you want.
and if anyone's going to come in and make a change, the change is not going to happen unless it's approved by the planning and town council. So, you know, John Doe can say, I want to change this, come in with whatever he has, his papers, and say, I want to make this, you know, R3. But unless it is approved by planning commission and town council, it's not going to happen. And the minute he does an application, he more than likely will be told it's not zoned for that. So as much as someone can say, I want to do that, we need to approve that, and I don't see that happening. That's, if that makes sense.
So my understanding is we're making the recommendation to town council. This is what we put forward to them. It's up to us to decide whether that stays R1 or becomes PUD.
Well, yes and no. Like, she is correct in making a motion. What I would have suggested earlier would have been to send the recommendation to strike the PUD part. And actually, you'll still have to do that after this motion. I'll explain that after, though, because it's not relevant to this motion. I'll answer anything else, though.
I'm just wondering, I mean, would it be worth it, going back to what you said half hour ago about the language of the PUD, and you had said that, you know, as it is right now, it works for the 301 corridor, but perhaps it doesn't, you know, well, not perhaps, it doesn't work for, let's say, the Lafayette area. So is it, I guess, what I'm hearing from the community and have been hearing from the community is no one wants, you know, PUDs on that parcel. But what I don't know is, does the community understand what the options are for PUD, like you've been bringing up. And I'm just wondering, I don't know if there's a way of doing this, but what would the community accept or not accept? Is it R1 only and that's it, and 39 houses and we're done? Or, you know, is there someone sitting out there thinking, you know what, like a senior home wouldn't be bad?
Well, I think the bottom line is they are speaking. And granted, like it's not just the people on that street. There are some, all on Main Street and everything. And this can be revisited later. If you can just go with this as is, and then over time can talk to people, answer those questions. I still would like to, like I said, talk to some people and see what growth that they would be interested in, and then try to come to how do we get to that. And yes, if all of this extra stuff is distracting and is, because bottom line is it's coming across, whatever the good intentions one actually has, it is confusing and it is coming across like we're doing more than we should be doing. And so hitting the reset button is okay. It does, we'll have to do a couple of other things, but I think we should finish with the motion first. Right now.
So do we have to repeat the motion?
Repeat the motion and then get the consensus.
I make a motion that we send a recommendation and/or letter to town council to put the parcel of land that is south of the Lafayette residence that borders the 301 corridor to R1.
Second.
No.
More discussion?
Yeah, can you amend that motion to both properties? But there's two properties that are on that.
To amend it to the two properties as well as put the two properties on the map when we send it to council.
Amend your second, too.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
You might want to take a roll call vote.
Okay. Tina?
Aye.
Valerie?
No.
Scott?
Aye.
Okay. Aye. Motion passed.
Can I get the chairman's vote, please? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'll say aye.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
All right.
Jeff, we can still discuss PUD.
We still need to, because what I
the
think...
mixed-use development on the 301 corridor, right?
Well, no, doing what you just did, because remember, like, we got away from what the discussion was. That's okay, a motion is always in order. The discussion, though, was about the text of PUD, not about applying it. So we still need to deal with that issue. Now, we won't spend all the time on that, but going with what you're talking about, I think it would behoove you to send another recommendation to strike the PUD from the low moderate density on the future. Look at the future land use map, and you'll see the PUD on there.
I also make a motion that we strike from low density the PUD on R1.
And I second that.
For R1 only.
For the orange color. On the legend on the use map, the orange color signifies that PUD could potentially be used on a low moderate to density land use. So I was just suggesting to get to the point of what you guys were trying to do, that would complete what you're trying to do. So I don't want you to, only be halfway through it, so. The motion should probably more likely be to remove PUD from the future land use concept map as an option for low moderate density residential. Or no, as a compatible use for low, moderate density residential. And in doing that, it would keep PUD as an option for high-density areas and the mixed-use areas. And those, again, those are the targeted areas for it anyway.
Say it again, Jeff, so I can put
Okay,
it in the
sorry, yes.
motion.
Okay, so you would move to strike PUD as a compatible use on the future land use map in low, moderate density residential applications.
I make a motion to strike the compatible PUD portion from low density, low, moderate density off the land use map. Is that right?
On the presented land use map. And I mean, you want to phrase
On the
that?
presented.
Yes, as, and, you know, bear in mind, although obviously this is recorded, everybody's going to know what your thing is. But this is a signifier to council that is what the planning commission has
Right.
has decided. So it's not binding, but nothing by the planning commission ever is, unfortunately. So yes, so sending a letter. I don't think you said that part. Like, you know, send your
To
consensus.
be included in the letter to
Yes.
change it to R1.
Yes.
That's my motion.
Now I second that.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Use your mic, Lisa. Sorry.
Aye.
Okay. Well, that is, well, that was kind of getting to the bottom of two issues with one, wasn't it? That's gonna close the stuff I have to talk about for now. You got 4 and then 4A to do before I'm back.
Okay, we're moving on to number 4, to schedule the work session. Melissa, do you want to speak on that?
Because we've had a lot of concern from the public and lots of questions from council and the planning commission about whether or not development our water and sewer infrastructure and capacity can sustain development. I have asked Doug Myers, he's an engineer with the Virginia Department of Health, Office of Drinking Water, to come answer questions. I'd like it to be a back and forth between planning commission members, town council members, and Mr. Myers to answer these questions and some misinformation we've heard, you know, and get it from a source that is not a town staff member, that is not, it's someone whose job is to know this and is unbiased. So I've asked him to come, and he's agreed. He's agreed to come on March 10th if we could make it for that day.
Okay. Do I have a motion to schedule a work session for March 10th at 6:30 to discuss the town's water system?
I make a motion that we attend the meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Melissa, do you have a report for the zoning administrator's report? Excuse me.
I apologize, I didn't put a written report in. I have approved one zoning permit this month, so not much to report.
What happened to 4A?
Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped. I'm sorry. Tina?
And, Chairperson, we approved our meeting schedule last month. In all these flurry of phone calls that I received, one of the many questions I got was, when was our planning commission meeting? I had to call town hall and ask them to please put it on the town calendar. It was not put on till Friday. I do know that, you know, it has to be put on 3 days ahead of time, but given all the controversy and people's concerns, I personally don't want it to appear that we're trying to hide anything or not being transparent. We have approved the entire year's schedule. Can it please be put on the calendar? If it needs to be amended through the year, we can do that.
Can we do that, Melissa?
Yes, we absolutely can. To clarify, all of the schedules are posted. When you go to the planning commission, it says schedules, and you just click on the schedule, the whole thing is there. There is some misunderstanding on how the calendar function works, so I'll have to, when I create a meeting within our agenda management where you get your packet, that's when the meeting shows up on the calendar. So I'll just have to go in and create meetings that don't have any content. So it will take some time, but I can go in and do that.
Madam Chair, I also have concerned, when we have a quorum here at our usual meeting time, which is now 7 o'clock, I think we should start, and if any other commissioner is late, that gets noted in the minutes when they come in and who it is. I don't feel that we should wait for, when we have a quorum. If we don't have a quorum, that's a different problem.
Okay. Any other comments about our schedule? Okay, we're moving into unfinished business, and we're reviewing comp plan chapters. Do you have enough water, Joe?
No, I'm good. Yeah. All right, let's try to get through this one quicker. All right, so we have the redo of chapter 9 and 10 in front of us here. And it has all the changes that we talked about last time. Hopefully you were able to go through some of it. We're going to need to discuss section 8 in chapter 9 a bit. And while you guys turn to the relevant, what I'd like you to do is make sure that you're comfortable with all the red, okay? And if you have further revision, then we need to convey that to Melissa so they can be updated for next time. Because after we're done talking right now, and I need to say this to those out in the audience, the expectation is, unless we have any severe issues tonight, we should go ahead and advertise for the public hearing on this item at our next meeting, like I was saying earlier. So that is to inform those of you out there, because as much as you were part of the conversation earlier, you should be part of this conversation as well. That this is also, it affects everybody in town. So that said, we're going to have to talk about section 8 as far as the utility plan, but it might be good for us to go over everything else of it first.
I had some, when reading over our revisions, where some things were omitted.
Okay.
On page 33, 37.
Your mic's off.
37. We had said.
Can we do one chapter at a time? That looks like that's going to be chapter 10. Yeah.
Okay, I'll wait till then.
Let's do 9 first,
All right.
yeah.
I thought you were talking 8, so.
Chapter 9. Wait. Hold on. I am talking about section 8 in chapter 10. So chapter 10, section 8.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
This table jumped out at me and I misspoke. So with that said, how are we feeling about chapter 9? Just at this point, like, we need to be open to conversation from the public, and that's why, we involve them. But right now, like, the point is, the reason that we talked about this once and now twice, and we'll talk about it again, is so that we can have a shaped presentation for the public to see. But then they're going to see it and hopefully come back with their opinions, and then we can build from there.
So we're talking chapter 9?
Mm-hmm.
So this discussion is also for the benefit of our public in
Yes.
the audience. And when did they have this revised material?
They had access to it only when the agenda went out, which, was it Thursday or Friday it went out, Melissa?
It went out Friday evening.
Okay, and so again, the intention is we develop something that looks nice, okay? We should never take action on anything before the public gets to see it, this is very true, okay? But so when we do the public hearing, that's when it's gonna be more of a, hey, public, we're gonna be talking about this, you need to be informed, here's the whole pamphlet. So the idea is, we look at this again tonight, if we're happy with it, and then not saying happy with it, but like, this is something we're comfortable giving the public to say, hey, come give us your opinion on. That's what we're supposed to do tonight. And we may still want more changes, okay, but you want to be comfortable in what you give the public. Kind of like the opposite of, what happened with the PUD thing. We only had the existing text, and so it became very confusing. So thank you for making that motion and putting an end to that. So chapter 9, all the red. The tables were updated with better numbers, and anything else that would need to be finalized should be finalized for the next. But what you were saying earlier, Sandra, was that striking that R3 on the moderate density header. That's one change to notate.
So we want to do that now?
Well, yeah, we're going over 9 now, so like, as we go through, like, anything that caught your eye that seemed off, whether it was just something that we didn't even talk about last time, that you just realized you wanted to change now, bring it up, or if you see a change that we did talk about that didn't get implemented. Anything that doesn't look right, mention it.
Okay, so then on page 20, under moderate density residential, I would like to strike and R3 at the very end.
Now, just to cover all the bases, R3 on that would be limited to the 4 to 8 dwellings, just to say, but.
But it doesn't match the map.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's fine, it's just, I want to present full
Right.
information,
Right. Either one or the other has to be, and at this point, since the map has technically been passed to go to council, then I want to change the wording.
Sure,
here.
yeah, no, I'm just trying to be complete to a fault, and it sometimes works. But each change we should get consensus on and then move on. Was everyone comfortable with the removal of that R3 on the moderate definition? And that, it makes enough sense. I don't have an issue there. Anything else? The main thing was the addition of an actual definition for high density, because it didn't exist before. And then there was just some informational things like the number of churches in town and the statistics. I don't think there was much else. I think that, yeah, that R3 was the last thing on there. So if we're happy with chapter 9 so far, get a consensus to Melissa with that one change, get that ready. And Melissa, should we do a separate motion for each for the public hearing, or combined?
We'll need one motion for public hearing, and I would ask that you include whatever portions of the comprehensive plan that you want to go to public hearing on when you make that motion.
Okay, so we'll go over chapter 10 and then make sure we want to do both before taking a motion. Okay. All right. Well, let's pull out chapter 10. And again, like last time, I suggest you put it into 2 stacks. Looks like it's page 81 to 90 and 91 to the end, or page 27 to 36 and page 37 to the end, depending on which number you're looking at. The pages are numbered twice.
In chapter 10, page 37, we had said a legend, we just wasn't gonna do anything, that we just wasn't gonna say legend or anything, we just were gonna list planning commission, economic development, et cetera, et cetera? Or
Yes,
were we gonna say legend?
I think that's what we had discussed at the time.
Was to say legend.
Mhm. If you've changed your mind, you can, of course, say so, but bear in mind that anything that is struck out here, wouldn't be in the final version,
Right, but I thought we, had said the legend and then listed what they were.
had we?
And all above, should it be all of the above? Just to read better? This is the way most people see it when they see that wordage.
Any of those, grammatical, spelling type things, I mean, just, float to your colleagues, and, I'm just trying to help guide through, and whatever your opinion of being more legible is, share it. I think there's, the underlining on just the two of those seems strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you out there, do you all have a copy of the whole packet at this point? Okay, good.
Then I have on page 43, the word is still omitted. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth bullet.
Which set, 2 or 3?
The set that was in the packet tonight, so it'd be the second set, page 43.
Yeah, page 43, header number 2 or 3.
Number 2.
Okay.
The fifth bullet.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right.
The second line, it reads, adequate buffers will be required for new development adjacent, and we had said it to add the word to existing.
Okay.
And that got dropped.
Noted.
Then, and this is going back to the notes that I had from our meeting, page 44. I had it down under implementation, number 1, we had struck staff, but we put in the Public Works Department / town manager, and town manager got dropped. Now, that was in my notes.
Okay. Yes, again, I think you should discuss amongst yourselves if you find that necessary or not.
And then the other change is on page 47, we had said
Well,
that.
no, go ahead and solve.
Solve each one,
That,
so we need to
yeah.
go back to page 37 then.
Are we all good with,
Legend and all of the above?
okay, I'm seeing everybody nod, and I would assume everybody is okay on page 43 with adding the word to, so
To.
it's adjacent to existing.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good catch there.
And then page
Okay.
44, like I said in my notes, under implementation, the first one, we struck staff for Public Works Department / town manager, and town manager got dropped, but that
Okay.
was in my notes. I
Well,
don't know
clarification,
if
that'd be Public Works Director, not Department,
Okay.
but, yeah,
Public
just
Works
to say.
Director.
So you wanted to add Town
That's
Manager.
what was in my notes
that.
originally.
Okay.
And then on page 47, we had talked about going back to 46, under implementation, we had 1 and 2, and then we were going to change the last paragraph to 3, and 3 got dropped.
Oh, yeah, it did, didn't it? That's
That's cleanup stuff.
yeah, that's Microsoft Word for you. You hit enter and it kills the number sometimes. Okay. Well, it's relatively minor as far as the changes there. Did anybody else see anything that, got missed or needs to be adjusted? I'm going to take that as a no. All right, so last thing of real discussion tonight then. All right. So, the set up my papers correctly here. The part that we deferred until this meeting so that we could get a few more numbers. The utility management plan aspect. Okay, so we've got a lot of public here, so I should probably mention to them. This last chapter, chapter 10, is goals and objectives and strategies for the comprehensive plan. It's meant as the part where we write down how we're going to do everything else in the comprehensive plan. So it has a bunch of subheaders like environmental, personnel, preservation, tourism, and you know, some of it is simple things like under tourism we're gonna have our EDA be an EDA. Some of it is more complicated and has a few line items in there. You all have the reference to see all of those. I don't be here way too late if I do every single line item. But what we had put off to today was this section under section 7, land use, where we were going to consider a new addition to the comprehensive plan, which has to do with implementing what we're kind of calling a utility resource management plan. The idea of it is to put in a tier system that binds the town in a way to where, based off the usage caps that we would set, those would automatically mean that certain growth wouldn't happen. We'll talk about it more, but I'm just trying to like inform with you all. So like we would have a tier system so that when our usage hits a certain mark, then we would automatically have to say no to certain developments. By right, developments wouldn't be affected, but developers coming in with the site plan, we would automatically say no until other metrics on here are met. It's the point of it is a self-limiting catch so that we don't find ourselves in a bind later. The idea is to address a lot of the concerns that we have towards our water and sewer, so that we take, if we put in a cap, a resource cap on ourselves, then that takes the opinion out of when things get put before us. So we can say in advance that we're going to be doing this, and so when somebody comes, we just automatically have to tell them no, so it should come across as more transparent, hopefully. Those of you over here, did you get a chance to look through this already? Or should I take it from the top? Which, this would be from page, well, it's page 43, 44, 45. Although I lost my page 43. There it is. Okay. All right, well, without hearing anything, I guess I will just read it from the top. Utility Resource Management Plan, the goal of which is to responsibly and efficiently provide a means to oversee incoming growth of the town of Bowling Green, to establish a method of control over the town's resource usage, and establish a method of phasing in scaled development to address potential resource capacity concerns. Now, after some discussion and research on this, this is mostly going to apply to the sewer. So let me temporarily skip ahead to the water side. and, you know, I can read what's here. I'll do that first. So the town's current groundwater permit allows for 69.5 million gallons per year, which is a little over 190 gallons per day on average. The current daily production is 153. This total includes unaccounted for usage from water leaks, flushing of hydrants, and the use from Caroline County Fire and Rescue, whether it be for training, filling trucks, whatnot. The current daily reserve is 37K, which allows for an additional 124 connections at the 300 gallon per day normality. Now, when they are assessing those things, they tell you to estimate that any new residential connection will be 300 gallons per day. Typically, it's actually far under that, but that's what they tell you to do. So with that reserve of 37K, the math is that would automatically give you 124 connections. So that's like how you maintain a little bit of, you know, understanding of that. The approval of development that will cause an excess of 190 gallons per day is contingent upon the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, their approval of a modified withdrawal permit. DEQ will not consider modifying the town's groundwater permit without conditionally approved development plans. You can see a graph here with our usage and our capacity. The unfortunate thing with the metrics here is that the way DEQ operates, they always have you kind of near that cap because they give you what they think you need. So your permit, and I'm not even talking about what the wells can actually do yet, I'm just talking about the permit. So, you know, our permit, 190 gallon per day, that's because that's what DEQ is giving us or letting us take, and it's based off what they think we need, or, you know, we give them data to prove that, but they're not gonna give us so much that we're only using 10% of it. They're gonna give us something to where we're using a large amount of that. So putting artificial caps on that wouldn't really help much because we're always gonna be at that cap. And so if we get some new plans, show some new growth, submit that to DEQ, and then get a new number, they're not gonna give us that new number until we already have those other connections, and then we'd still be at the same cap. So a utility cap plan is less useful for water intake. We could certainly discuss some other things to do about that. That said, obviously in our chapter 10 here, we have things where we're going to do that. And again, we have the graphing here that shows what we use. And so that is me saying that that covers the water aspect. So now we need to go back and talk about sewer.
Where does the water come from? How many wells we have?
Melissa, you want to get the hard numbers on that for me?
We currently have 3 wells online.
And they, do you happen to know how much each one pumps? I figure that might be a question.
And where they're located?
Yeah, that.
I can tell you where they're located. I don't know off the top of my head how much each one pumps.
Okay.
We have one at Cedar Lane. We have one on Broadus, just before you get to the plant on the right. And our third one is out here by the water tower.
Okay. Now, even I'll go ahead and say it because it's going to be said. Like, you know, there is the one well that we're going to be having a look at taking down in 24, or is it 25?
In 2025, we're going to have to take well 1, which is Cedar Lane, offline due to the way it was constructed. When it was constructed, it went through two separate aquifers, and it's allowing the water from the aquifers to mix, which is, when it was constructed, I don't believe it was it wasn't a regulation, but now it is a regulation, so we're required to take it offline. We have a potential well site on the Maury Heights subdivision. If that doesn't work out, we are permitted to drill a new well right next to this current Cedar Lane well. It just has to be constructed in a different way that the current Cedar Lane well is constructed.
Fair enough. Now,
Maury Heights in the town of Bowling Green or outside?
That is outside of town limits, within our water service district, though.
Thank you.
So all that to say that, there is the beginnings of a plan. We're still waiting on some data from that potential well, and obviously we have some, but limited time to figure these things out. When it comes to the Planning Commission, because of those moving targets, those things are a little bit less the prerogative of the Planning Commission and more really big budget number things that the council has to figure out how to solve those problems of digging new wells or equipping them and whatnot. Going back to like the DEQ permits, it's less of a thing for the Planning Commission to promote conditions for site plans. So that's, I'm saying that to say it's not really the realm of the Planning Commission. There are real issues that need to be addressed, and there is definitely work being done to address them. But, with the scope of what the Planning Commission's job is, it's a little bit separated from it. Unlike the sewer, because those are numbers that we can track very well. They are ones that we can manage, and those are ones that we can, to an extent, foresee and plan for. So, with the Planning Commission having planning in the name, that's one that we can address. And so, that brings us to the sewer usage graph. And so, now, the way this is on here, this is just a framework to build upon. This would be for you guys to determine what you think the best caps are. Okay, so do you all have that graph in front of you? Okay, interrupt me as needed, okay? The first section, current usage, okay? So that's that is where we are right now, okay? So we have what our max capacity is, and that is the actual capacity rating of the, and Melissa, you interrupt me too when I get something wrong. That's the capacity of the water treatment facility itself.
Can I stop you real quick?
Please do.
Our actual capacity that the plant can handle is 250,000. However, we do have an agreement with the county in which they have reserved up to 45,000 gallons per day. So
Okay.
for ease of explaining what we can actually use, I
Yeah.
just omitted what the county has reserved, and I also did not include in these calculations any waste that we're taking in from the county.
Okay, okay.
The county is in bulk, not the county as in
Yeah.
those outside of the town in our service district.
Okay, that's good for the example with giving everybody. I think in the final version, we should reflect all that. But yeah, this makes it a lot easier to read right now. Thank you, thanks for the clarity there. Okay, so our effective max capacity is the 205. And this other math on here is based off of that number. So currently, our usage is at 47.8%. That's what we're doing every day, average. And then that's split between these subheaders here. And so that leaves us with that particular unused capacity. So that's where we are right now. So the idea of implementing a cap plan is where would you put your tiers of what you have to do. So like, we actually are in the middle of doing certain things like engineering studies and planning for upgrades and whatnot, okay? Well, just assume that we're not doing that for the sake of this example, okay? We have a potential first cap, and that cap, in this example, is at 60%. So that is a little over 12% would trigger this first cap. So what it means is whatever you decide that you want to put on here, but it would limit growth past that unless we do certain things. And so, for example, here, it's do the engineering study on what we would need to do to increase our capacity, get that done, financing secured, and council has taken action. The intention is have a plan and be exercising that plan before you allow more growth into the town. The numbers are up for discussion. Some of this stuff is like outright factual, but some of it is proposed. And I didn't like the first cap here I have at 60%, the second cap I have here is 70%. You can move that. Our official DEQ cap is what exactly, Melissa? It's 90.
I believe on the sewer, it's 90%, at which time they would require us to start doing research to increase the capacity,
Okay.
which we've already met that requirement in
Well,
our engineering study.
True that. You know, but beyond that, like, that's not a very strict cap. If we had actually chosen to do nothing right now and gone up to 90%, we'd be really taxing that system. So, you know, I certainly think that we need to take action before hitting 90% of our thing. You know, we can come to a consensus on what those trigger points should actually be. And the nitty-gritty of this can be analyzed. But what I'm looking for in this is to we have the ability to just use these flat caps of 60%, 70%, or, you know, 55, 65, whatever. And we can just go with exactly how this is written. So that first tier means we have to do those things on the access triggered thing before you can go to tier 2. And then if you hit that tier 2 cap, you have to do those things before you lift it. I don't think we need to complicate it to have more tiers. And what you can do is we could, what's on here is listed, if you look under the tier 1 growth cap, and you'll see reserve. And that is a static 5%. And under tier 2, you'll see reserve as 7.5%. The concept of that is to utilize that reserve to enable management of things that are coming in. So when a project comes in, one of the things that we would have to look at in the future is, does it follow the comprehensive plan? That's your most important thing as a planning commission to do, is does it follow the comprehensive plan? Well, by adopting this into the comprehensive plan, it would now have to be compatible with this as well. So therefore, if a large development were to come in with a site plan, and their site plan included usage that would, by estimated, go over this, you would say no. But what you can do is you can assign this reserve capacity to enable certain projects if you wanted. You can take your residential, you can take your commercial, and you can put into the tiers caps on those specifically. If you wanted more control over it.
Jeff, can this be changed at any time? Or are these numbers
What you
something that have to be changed every time we redo the comp plan?
Well, it's not about every time you redo the comp plan. Obviously, anytime you redo the comp plan, you can redo any of this. You could take this out when you redo the comp plan, or you could add 5 tiers to it. What you would need to do as far as moving targets, which I think what the question is yes, this stuff needs to be regularly updated with the new numbers. Because that first part of the graph with the average usage is going to be a moving target anytime somebody moves in out. So that's going to consistently move until it bumps that cap, if it bumps that cap. Hopefully it bumps that cap because we want to grow. We just want to grow managed, which is what the point of this is. Now, what you also do at the same time is you put in this how often you're going to actually sit down and take a look at it. Because we are constantly doing engineering studies and working on upgrading things and hoping that we have the money to do them. But assuming that we do, then these other parts are going to change. And so we regularly would revisit this quarterly, semi-annually, annually, as needed. You know, that would be part of if you adopt this, that you say, hey, we need to revisit this regularly. Just like all the other things in Chapter 10 that we're supposed to do every year. You know, and I would actually suggest that upon updating all of this stuff, that we kind of organize when we're going to do those reviews, because that would actually kind of help your overall calendar of, oh, hey, we're supposed to do this, this, and this. Let's actually schedule it out in advance. That would help, because it's just a yearly thing that you just kind of copy-paste each year.
Notes from last meeting said we were doing an update quarterly, and I had
And
it
that
written on
sounds
that
fair, yeah.
page for when we added the chart.
Right, I mean, we did kind of table it to discuss it more in depth tonight, but yeah, I know we had a couple things we said, and quarterly, that certainly sounds good to me. You know, I would go with, you know, quarter or twice a year. I think more than once a year would probably be applicable, and hey, maybe most of the time it's just, yes, everything's the same. It could well be. But yeah, let's get some more, you know, questions, and let's make sure we all kind of understand where we're coming from and everything.
So if we adopted these numbers, and I guess my question is, I'm going to give a mythical example, but we have 29.8% for residential, and say the homes come in and there's a boom in Maury Heights and they start adding homes like crazy, and that number hits that 29.8. We have 5% in reserve. Do we have the ability to take something away from commercial if we choose to and reallocate it towards something else? Or are these divisions set in stone?
Well, that's the
Or
choices
can
you have
we-
to make. Like, if you were to just take this example as is, then I guess I would say no, but that's the point of talking about it. Now, that said, don't forget that everything by right is still gonna be by right. So if you're talking about Maury Heights, where those houses are already approved to go, that's just gonna happen, and it will still make that residential number go up. So it's the rezonings, it's the stuff on 301 that's gonna be blocked by this. It would have been the stuff on the south end of town that would be blocked by this. You know, it's the new things not developed. You know, there's an empty lot next to me. That person could by right already do something with that, and that would not be locked, and it shouldn't be. By right should always be by right. But no, these targets, and looking at it, it looks like we need another column in here, but that new growth gallon per day section, it's looking like the residential and commercial in tier 1 are estimated at a 10% growth. It looks like 10% of the number from before added. And, you know, you would just like basically define, like, what you would use is, okay, I'm gonna round for these numbers. We're at 48% right now, and we're looking to put the tier 1 at 60. That leaves you 12,000. How do you wanna divide that up between the different parameters that you have? You know, if you wanna say, I wanna split it between residential and commercial, okay, fine, do that. You know, you wanna do 2/3 one way, do that. You know, do keep some in the reserve so that you can make those changes. Because yes, if you were to get like you said, a boom in Maury Heights, that's gonna eat away at some of what you were actually expecting. And so maybe you do wanna allow the, you know, I don't know, office park out there, okay? And yeah, so you can reassign. And so it's just whatever numbers you'd be comfortable with. You know, bearing in mind that you want to keep these caps somewhere that would actually accomplish the intent of what you're trying to do, which is limit the things in a way that protects the integrity of the system. You know, going, oh, let's go with a 90 and a 95% cap. Well, you might not. No point in bothering to do it. You know, don't just pay lip service to the concept of the concern of the system being taxed. You know, the system is okay. I mean, you know, if we're only using 48%, that's pretty good. You know, we need to be forward thinking, and so implementing something that's going to force us to, you know, be forward thinking. Really, it's only a trigger for, you know, those that are not forward thinking to force them to. But if, you know, that would help, so be it.
You talked about Maury Heights
Well, I was just using your example.
future development. Is there a chart on what Maury Heights is using now versus what's been set aside for Maury Heights, so we know? If is it in here?
Well, that's not going to be in here. All the projections for different things, whether it be, there are projections for, like, there's how many houses that can be put over there, just like the amount that we intake from county, like say the Brookwood development, like that has a current usage and it has what their projections would be. And yes, we could get those numbers and take a look at them, and that's how you could kind of come to a better decision of where to put those caps. But again, those would be moving targets.
Madam Chair, can we get those figures, what's being used and what's been set aside for future use for those two developments?
Melissa, is that data, I'm sure it's not at your fingertips, but I mean, can we get that information?
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, the request is to get the current sewer intake from both Maury Heights. I'm sorry, only one Maury Heights has sewer, so the new Maury Heights, and we don't have anything specifically reserved for that neighborhood, so I'm not sure about the second part of the request.
Do we have how many units they plan to build?
Yes, so
That's-
we've received
yes.
applications for the rest of the build-out of the current phase of
Yeah, so
what's called
that factor
Maury
based off
Heights
the
2.
300 GPD.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
And then the
also
other
for
one is Brookwood.
Brookwood, we have no control over. We just take bulk sewage from the county, and the county has a cap of 45,000 gallons per day.
Okay, we can go with that.
But you don't know what's being used right now of that 45?
No, I do have that because we bill them separately for the bulk, but that's why I remove them altogether from our calculations, because whether they use 5 gallons of it or 45,000, that's theirs, their reserve.
Let me re-clarify that then for you, Melissa. Our plan is rated for 250K, and so she just took the entire 45 that county can use out of the equation entirely. And that sounds fair. And hey, all the better on the system if they're not using it, but if they can't go above that, there you go.
So we've got what we're doing now. Tier 1 would be at 60%, and then we need to start studying engineering studies. And then if we went to Tier 2, we're actually going to be groundbreaking for a new plant somewhere else? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, not necessarily somewhere else, but yeah, so yeah, we need to do engineering study, and some of that is actually occurring now. But so basically, your real trigger for unlocking Tier 1 on here is council secured the funding to do the project. And so then you would know, as a planning commission, hey, they're gonna do it, because they got the bill. They're gonna start doing that. That doesn't mean that they've broken ground. That's where Tier 2 is. So, you know, they could do all their engineering studies. It's like, okay, you need to do blank to make your treatment go from 250 to 350. Okay, so they do everything they need to do that, and they get the funding. I'm not saying that's gonna be easy. That's actually really, really difficult, but anyway. Getting the funding for that would unlock your Tier 1. So now you can grow from 60% to 70%. And again, that's just a number. You can change that number. And then in order to unlock that 70%, you would need to be breaking ground and getting that started, because those projects do take a little while. And so, and yeah, you could consider putting these numbers a little bit higher, maybe 65, 75. You know, those are things where, you know, this, again, being a somewhat complicated thing that just needs some more discussion to understand. You know, this is another one to kind of be bouncing off the public and taking time for them to understand too. And assessing all the math to make sure that the numbers are right.
So if we were at Tier 1, our unused capacity would be 82,000 gallons. If we had to go to Tier 2, what's unused? Is it the 61.5 that's over in the first column?
It's no, the Tier 1 cap would be the 123. That 123 is what you would be using at 60% max, and that means that there's 82 unused. And so then the 70% cap comes out at 143.5.
All right, in that column at 143.5, unused capacity, it's blank, but in the other two, current and tier one, there's a total there.
Melissa, is that just something you missed in the auto
Yeah,
sum?
I think I just put the number in the wrong
Yeah,
column. It just needs
yeah,
to move
yeah,
over
yeah, that
under
should've
the
been- yeah.
15,375.
Yeah, it is the
61.5.
61, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 61.5 would be the unused capacity if we were at 70%.
It's another formatting thing. You know, doing a table inside of Word is frustrating. But it's the general idea. And so really, again, you know, we're belaboring a lot of things. I certainly want to have all the information out there, so I'm being overly thorough. But, you know, we should be like, hey, is this a concept that is agreeable? And if not, do you have a different suggestion, or do you want to like not do anything? This was born about by hearing all the concerns about utility and agreeing with them. Now, there's only so many things that we can do to alleviate those concerns. We can get up here and just say, hey, yeah, if there's a project that comes in front of us that looks dangerous, we'll say no. And yeah, I mean, we can say that. And honestly, I hope that if something detrimental would happen, we would say no. But having something that automatically does that, I think can help alleviate some concern. It doesn't solve all of it, no. You know, because, bottom line is we need to solve the sewer issues. That is not a planning commission thing to do, though. That's council has to do the studies, get the money, blah, blah. So the question is, what can the planning commission do? Well, the planning commission can put in an action plan that tries to address the issue. Nothing's a 100% fix. You're still going to have to do your due diligence whenever anything comes in front of you.
So if we have the ability to review this quarterly, and at any time these numbers aren't set in stone as far as, we can move the capacity, used caps, we can change those around if we need to.
Yeah, that would be.
So you're just talking about using this as a basic formula or a map to kind of get us going? I would suggest we go ahead and accept it.
Well, by adopting this into the comprehensive plan, it's a little bit more than a guideline. Because again, anything that comes in front of here is to be compatible with it. And you can't change the comp plan on a whim. You can change the comp plan, but you're gonna have to go through the process to do it. So you wanna be really comfortable with those numbers. Now, the moving numbers will always be moving. You don't have to worry about those changing. But when you say, when you advertise for a public hearing, hey, we're gonna cap the treatment plant at 6% of capacity for this duration, you're doing that. You're gonna get some public feedback on it. Council's gonna have to take action on it. And so then if you wanna change that later, you gotta go through the process again.
Okay, I guess that was my question before, was this set in
Yeah,
stone?
certain
or
numbers.
do we have some latitude?
Certain numbers would be, and of course, you could put windows in there. This is basic framework. This is, if you were to go with this like how it is, that's pretty simple, okay? And you could keep it simple. You could make 10 tiers, you could make all kinds of things. You could say, we need to have a subcommittee to do it. Please don't, but you could. I'm here informationally and giving you a lot of it, so I'm trying. But, you guys, keep the discussion going.
So I just have a question about the 45,000 gallon capacity reserved by county.
Oh,
And
okay.
I understand you don't really have any control over that, but that does account for the discharge of the Brookwood subdivision?
Yes, it's primarily that.
So
It's
the
also
total
school.
of Brookwood is in that 45,000?
It's something less than 45, yes.
So if we allow 300 gallon a day per housing unit, then Brookwood theoretically is like over 60,000 gallons when that thing is built out. Is that right?
No, not exactly.
So
We could still get those numbers because their projections are available for the maximum amount of houses they can have. But beyond Brookwood, there's also a few other things that utilize the water. There's the school, and there's a couple other, there's that one street that does, and what else, Melissa? What else is using the water? Well, the sewer.
The elementary school uses the bulk sewage, and then the complex, the community center complex with the health department. But I think your question about Brookwood is, if there's a special, I believe it's like a special exception, and I don't want to misspeak because this is the county's planning, but that they could build the maximum amount of houses based on the sewer capacity. So I think there's some wording in there in this special exception, or that allows them to build up. They can only have so much sewage, and the agreement between the town and the county is that we can renegotiate the capacity. So the county could come back and want to renegotiate the agreement and ask for more capacity. And then at that time, they could get the extra capacity for Brookwood to build out the extra homes.
And the question is, can council say no to that request?
That I would leave up to the attorney. I think it's a negotiation
I
on
think
the
I remember hearing
agreement,
something about
so-
that might not be the case.
Yeah,
not
so,
sure.
so that drives at the heart of my question is, out of this 45,000 gallon, how much is the county currently using? Do we know what the utilization of that is? Because
We can
if
get
they,
to the bottom of that, yeah.
I mean, if the county comes back and says, well, we got this big new development and we need a lot more of that capacity, it would just blow these other tier numbers
So
completely to pieces.
currently they're using at our last billing, they were using under 5,000 gallons a day. And we are, like we said, we're using this 300 gallon per day projection. But if they find out Brookwood has 100 houses, but they're not using 300 gallons per day, they could look at that and say, well, we have more room, more capacity left in our reserve, so we can actually build more than the number of houses times 300 gallons per day.
Well, let me have a comment on that. If currently the biggest question for me is if currently their limit is 45, and they can come back to the table and ask for more, I really would be interested to know if the town can say no. If the town can say no, then the question becomes, let's ask the public what they say, because the public seems to be against a lot of excessive growth that would tax our utility system, so I would think that the public would not want to give our resources to outside the town, based off of that. That would be my assumption. I don't know, but therefore my question would be, can we say no to the county? Because I remember hearing kind of both on that, and we don't have a outright answer at the moment. And that said, so with that, if the answer to that is yes, we can say no to the county, I'm pretty sure everybody would prioritize county building. But again, I don't know. But in the time being, just saying, here's what we're giving the county, here's what we expect the county to take, here's what the county is allowed to take, and just saying, we're not even going to regard that because we're going to give the county the entire thing that we've agreed to, even though we're not using it, or they're not using it. I think factoring based off that math is good. But if the county can come back and automatically take a whole bunch of our usage, then yeah, we need to factor for that. But I think we need to get the answer to that question.
Yeah,
Because the county usage, if they were to come back, I would float the idea that the county would, if we're saying, hey, we got 10,000 before our cap, and the county come back and want 5, well, we can look at our thing and be like, okay, well, we got 5 we can give you. I think that if we can hold them to the same forward planning that we're talking about, we should. Now, if we can't, then we got to factor around that.
I would say we need the answer to that question. The question,
I
can
agree.
you say
Absolutely.
no before we
Yeah.
could potentially adopt this,
Right on.
this tier structure?
Yeah. No, and that's it's a very important question. I think the way it's presented here, if that is okay, is good, but that's if they can take a quarter of our capacity, well, we would need to be able to plan around that, wouldn't we? I don't know if that's the case.
So can we add a column for the county?
Yeah.
For residential, which would be Brookwood, and commercial would be the complex and the school? And then what's unused, right now you're saying is 40,000, and then just in tier one and
I-
tier two, you put 40,000 as unused capacity.
I wouldn't put, I wouldn't separate them into the residential commercial. I would put them in a row of county and everything, because it's technically combined on their
Yeah.
bill. So
Okay.
we could put county in there as a separate thing. And, yeah, what was the second part of what you asked?
We show what they're using,
Mm-hmm.
and then what's unused.
Yeah,
So in current usage in tier one and tier two, that would just roll over into unused, because either they're using it or they're not.
right. Well, I don't think that the concept of taking what the county doesn't use as usable by us as a good thing,
No,
because
It's
they
just
could use it.
tracking.
But tracking, yeah, I can.
that's all it's for.
I can go with that.
Or
It's like, you're
information
talking,
purposes,
you're talking two
yeah.
more rows. You know, you're talking county used, county unused,
Right,
and that's cool.
because you're working off of 205, but yet you told us it was 250. So it would be nice to see the 45 is
Mm-hmm.
county reserve, and just to know currently what of that 45 they are using, so we know
That's good to know.
they have growth too.
That growth certainly affects us, both in the treatment and in the traffic and the people and comings and goings. So it's good data to have. That fairly feasible to get, Melissa, for next time?
Yes, I have access to that information. As part of this comp plan, though, each time that number changes and we update it, we do have to go to public hearing again and adopt it. So I don't know, I mean, if that's, especially considering we're talking about Brookwood is growing as we speak, it's not going to be a very accurate number, and it's going to sit in the
Right,
comp
it would,
plan,
yeah,
and
it would
then-
be accurate at,
that point when we adopted it, but it's changing as we speak.
right, kind of like our other metrics on, well, even chapter 9, if you, where'd it go? Oh, here it is. If you guys look back on chapter 9, the second page, that would be page 19. You'll see that we have our existing and future land use. And then those are numbers that are constantly moving as well. Okay. Now, we don't need to update the comp plan itself every time that those numbers change. Even that very first number of 343 households, people have moved in and out since that was done. What we need to change is the overall numbers each time we actually update the comp plan. But when we do our review of this utility plan, that's when we would get to the updated numbers. And if, by looking at those, we think we need to change anything, like the tiers, like if we, actually cracked tier 1 and we had all the stuff, then it's like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and unlock tier 1, then that's when we do some changes. But no, we don't need to get together every month and be like, okay, 10 houses were done, we need to change the usage up there. No, we only need to have that updated when we're doing our reviews. And we don't need to take that data and update the whole comp plan and go through the 4-month process of updating the comp plan. That's just a tool for us when we do stuff. The main thing is adopting this thing in for the tiers. And that's if that's what you all choose to do, which, I think you should do something. I like this, and, we can build from this or build something else.
So can we change total capacity to 250, add another line item that says county 45 in each one of the groups?
No, I
The
completely agree
current-
to expand
The
it.
tier 1 and the tier 2, and just show 45 to know what percentage of the sewer plant is going to the county for bulk use.
Yes.
I mean, if we don't need to know day to day, that's fine, but I think because you said we have a permit for 250, but you're showing 205.
Yeah, well, it says right on the top, totals do not include county reserve and usage.
Right.
But yes, I think the intent is for the full breakdown to be there, because, you should always have a full breakdown when you're adopted in your comprehensive plan. I mean, goodness, you want to have everything there. And, I'm sure we'll hear, like if we're going to develop this, we'll hear some other voices of, hey, you forgot this or that, or you should go this way. We'll get some more information and, be able to act on that at the time. The question is this something that you want to build from? You don't have to use this. Like are you happy with a cap of 60%? Do you want to move that? And obviously we have to hear the answer to that question about, county being able to automatically go or not. And, if not, then, we can do projections on what we, think we would want to divvy towards the county. I don't suppose you know the answer to that, do you, Jeff? Well, the one about whether the county can, does the county have to come before council to request that, or is it automatic?
No, it's a negotiation.
Okay.
But there are state mandates for wastewater and what you have to do when.
Yeah, we were trying to just be more strict than that, basically.
Yeah, but just remember, there's an expense with that strictness too that comes with it.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. Yeah, and feel free to talk to me later. We shouldn't go back and forth right now, but I wanted to ask you that one question. We can get further clarification, but I do trust him. So, with that, I think that, obviously, you all should think about it. But, we need to give the public some time to talk about it, bring it back. So I guess the question is, how comfortable are you feeling? Like, how much more are you going to want? Because the idea is to get all of this done. I seriously want all of this behind us. I want to make the best decisions, but it's been a long time coming, so I do want it behind us. Our quickest possible roadmap is public hearing at the next meeting. Okay, we need to, and I would like to at least get this is part of chapter 10, but I'd like to get 9 done. And so what's going to be appropriate is some sort of motion to get some of this stuff moving. Now, even if you go to public hearing, which is, the correct way to go about, getting that public feedback, and hopefully we can get at least as many people as we got tonight to give us some more stuff. Now, after hearing from them, you don't have to take action that night. If you want to digest it, you can. Like we saw tonight, a motion is always in order, but those motions can also die on the floor. So the fastest possible route is set a public hearing for next meeting, get the public feedback, organize your opinion. If you're actually happy with everything, including some more fine-tuning, then you would forward that on to the council at that point. And then the council has to repeat the process. So the council, if we met next month and you guys forwarded it on, and honestly, whether you forward it for approval or for denial, it would move on, and the council would get it. The council would then set their public hearing if they want to go that fast. They might decide to take a couple months and talk about it themselves. But so their fastest would be, like I was saying earlier, their May meeting, when they would have their public hearing at the most. Go ahead.
Tier 2, unused capacity, we've got it 30%. 30% of 205 is 6150. Say we used all of that in housing at 300 gallons per house, that's only 20 homes. That is what you're saying is unused capacity? So, once we reach that tier 2, we're looking really at a critical issue of another system.
Well,
correct?
Well, I don't know, I don't want to sit here checking all your math, but I guess I would have to.
I think that'd be more like 200 homes, actually, to use that much capacity.
And again, these limits are artificial. You want to have them be somewhat strict, but you don't want them to be, completely strict either. It's just take a look at the other things around and be like, hey, this seems like something that I can. What you want to be able to do is walk away from this and be like, I put in place something that I feel protects the people I represent. Something like that, okay?
61,000, okay.
Gotta have that decimal place, huh? But no, that's what you guys are gonna have to chew on and see, and, you know, make a recommendation based off that. And if you feel good about doing nothing, you can do nothing too. It's just, you know, from what I was hearing, that hard point limit of the 90-some from DEQ was just a little bit high, and, you know, I want whatever, like, you know, I can do to try to instill a little more faith from the public in what we're doing. You know, I feel some value in that, you know, more than me just saying, hey, I'm going to try not to do something bad or something that you wouldn't like. You know, here, I can put forth this plan that at least partially addresses your concern, and then, you know, adopting the comprehensive plan so that I can't, you just change it, you know. It's a lock, but we just want to make sure we don't make it too strict, so. But, you know, we've definitely talked about it too much, so let's, you know, if you're comfortable with that, then, you know, we can, you know, get some consensus with you all. Like, I'm not, I keep giving you everything because we're kind of going circling around, but, like, it's not, Lisa, I'm not trying to run your meeting. Your mic, though.
I think we're pretty comfortable with making a motion for Chapter 9. What I'm concerned about is making the motion for Chapter 10, for the public hearing, with our unanswered questions on the chart. If we put this up for a public hearing and the public comes out, you know, as they did today, are we going to spend 2 hours picking apart the numbers? And I'm not saying that the communication with the public is not a good thing.
Well, I would hope that whether we were having a public hearing on it or not, that the public would speak to this.
Well, right.
So with that said, I mean, I'm almost like, well, if you have the public hearing, you're all the more telling them to come out. So it's kind of either or. Because, yeah, I'm going to try to engage with some people, and I hope some people take me up on me asking them to talk to me, and I want to hear some feedback, because I may not be voting on it here, but I'll be voting on it at council, so.
I mean, I think the utility resource management plan is a good idea. I mean, we've had several people voice their concerns about the water and sewer over the last several months. I'm not a math expert, so the numbers, I mean, they look good to me, but you know, I'm not an expert. So I'm concerned about just about what the numbers are, to be honest, not the fact that we are assigning numbers.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Madam Chairperson, could we possibly just go ahead and approve Section 9 and wait for Section 10 till after we have the meeting on the 10th in March with the sewage, the work session with the sewage people might give us better clarity. That would be my suggestion. Is that a motion? Do I have to make a motion?
It sounds like one.
I don't want to
Make it official.
Go for it.
I would like to make a motion that we adopt Section 9 and postpone the adoption of Section 10 till after we have our work session on March the 10th.
So that means 2 public hearings?
Well,
Could, Valerie, can you turn your mic on? I'm sorry.
right, well then, we
One
can,
public hearing, get it all done, right, Sam? I mean, not for anything, but at $400 a pop to advertise all this stuff, you know.
Well, our public hearing, the next available date for that would be what?
If you decided to have the public, if you told me tonight and you voted tonight, the public hearing would be held at your March 15th meeting.
Okay, so it would be after the work session on March 10th.
so we would, I'm sorry, so what you're saying is my motion would cause us to have 2 public hearings. I don't want to do that. I withdraw my motion.
Also, the March 10 meeting is water. It's not water and sewer.
No,
It's just
Mr. Myers
water.
would only be talking about our
Right,
water.
so
Yeah.
it just has to do with water, not sewer at all. Okay, just want to make sure.
So if we modify their chart just to include the county's reserves at 45 in each of the 3 tiers, I'm okay with that. It's just showing it and showing the percentages, that's it. I mean, how they use it, that's their thing. And that lets the residents in town know the county has that reserve too.
You would still be able to change those numbers at the meeting, like based off public feedback. If you were to hear, a couple dozen people say those limits are too high, you could lower. I mean, if you were to hear a couple people say it's too low, then you could go the other direction if you saw fit.
Okay, so does someone want to make a motion to have a public hearing on March 15th?
Your mic?
Does it go off automatically? Like, it's red for a while, then it turns white. Would someone like to make a motion to have a public hearing on March 15th to go over chapters 9 and 10?
Is that including the line item for the county's reserve in the chart? I make that motion.
Anyone second that motion? Okay, all in favor? All right. Okay.
I've noticed these mics, the fourth person to press when they're all on turns off the first.
Is that what it
Yeah.
is? Because I'm not touching it. It's
Well,
like
I mean,
mine is
it was
on.
me a couple times.
Okay, so we're done for this evening for chapters 9 and 10. Thank you, Jeff, for all your input. I appreciate all your knowledge and your help.
Yeah, see, I just turned you off. You're welcome.
The PUD is in what chapter, Jeff? 8?
PUD, the definition of that is in the zoning ordinance, and I think it's section 4 of the zoning ordinance. PUD is not in there, and just to re-specify, we did strike it from
From the map.
from the map, yeah.
Right.
And
PUD is in Division 8 of the zoning,
8.
the town
Okay,
code,
all right. Well,
which is,
I was halfway there.
yeah.
Page 13, it starts on.
Yeah, but where is it found? I was wondering if it was in one of these chapters or if it was in another chapter, or can we still work on revising the PUD if we need
Well,
to
I mean,
later?
okay, with that, the zoning ordinance, like, that was a pressing item, so it got brought up and dealt with, so good. But yeah, there is some more stuff that you can do, but the zoning ordinance, along with the subdivision ordinance, are referenced in chapter 10 here as things that are to be updated and looked at. So when I was talking about how there's a bunch of things that we're supposed to look at, and we, once we get up to speed on everything, we could do the annual revisions. That's one of them.
Okay.
And so, we have chapter 9 and 10, we'll be done with that soon. There's the other chapters, and then there's the zoning ordinance and the other, and a couple other things that are outlined in chapter 10 here. And so, by all means, line them all up, knock them all down, and then we'll really be rolling, and that'll be really good for town. So, yes.
So we're approving the PUD as it is written now, but we can, once it's been approved?
There's no approval of it, that was just as is, and what was tonight was what I said a couple times of, hey, do you want it or not? We went with not, so there was nothing to do.
Okay.
And the answer was, the question was, if yes, we need to change it.
Okay.
Okay, and so we went with no, so there is no need to change it,
Okay.
because it's not going to get implemented at that level.
Okay.
It's still applicable for the actual high density, but yeah.
Okay.
And it's okay now. We can revisit that language and by all means clean up everything in the code, and hopefully we do, but it's okay for right now.
Madam Chairperson, I would like clarification on one thing before we adjourn. On the future use map that was submitted to town council, when I went through my planning commission packet, we have the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area map. Why is this preservation area not reflected on the future use map? Because to my way of thinking, you can't zone something that is a preservation area. That is its zoning, and it's not reflected on this map.
Where is it missing at? Like, I would need to see it, I'm sorry. No, I'll come over there, I'll come over there.
Here's the future use map. Here's the pond. This is the preservation area. All of this is listed on this map, but it is not reflected on this one. Here's zoning reflected on this one. You can't zone a preservation area. There is no zoning something that you're not allowed to touch.
The property would still have zoning, you just wouldn't be able to build on that area, but it would still have a land use zoning.
Yeah, what I can say to that is we didn't change that from the former one. That area, from what it looked like there, on what you did, it looks like that runs through some stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong. So it's got, where you are, obviously that part that is arborial preservation, and then it looks like it flows through that one low-density area and then into that commercial. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
In the mixed
There is a
use.
little in the mixed use? It looked like it was right on the edge to me, but it might be, it might be.
Yeah, it's right on the edge of the commercial and mixed
Okay,
use.
well, I can tell you that the low-density one and the commercial one, those were in the old version. And then the mixed-use area was low-density in the old one. So they already did have a future land use that was not the RP. Now, you know, we can always ask Melissa to consult, make sure that's okay, but it was before. And that area, but, I mean, really, at the end of the day, that area is kind of lowland. I don't think there'd be development on that specific spot. It's all kind of watershedy. Not all of it.
Mr. Mullen made
Yeah.
reference to the fact when I asked him about purchasing property,
Mm-hmm.
that he didn't want to sell it because that was the access to the R1 property behind us for him to access that to build on that property. So, I mean,
Gotcha.
it's not something that has been tabled or isn't out there for
Mm-hmm.
discussion. I just personally felt like something as important as the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area should be reflected on our future use map.
I won't dispute that. I got two comments. First one, I think, looking at that, some of that runs through areas that are already have stuff on them, because that area is currently being used commercially. Now, I don't know how close that is to, say, the self-storage place. I think it's a little to the right of it.
No, you're looking at the map incorrectly.
But I have it upside down, I'm sorry.
You don't show your street on it.
No, because our property is here. The pond is down below us, and the pond is part of the Maricossack Creek waterway. That all flows back here, which flows through the R1 and comes back down between the mixed use. It goes back, it crosses 301
Yeah, and I
on
know
the
it also
back
goes off,
side.
like, it goes off that map too.
Right, but that
Right.
That
Well,
is not the self-storage area.
Okay,
The
no, that's,
self-storage
yeah, I
area
can't
is
place all of
down
it
here.
off the top of my head. I can say that none of that, what you're saying, was reflected in the old version. It's not reflected in the current use map. It's not reflected in the old current use map. You know, the desire to have it actually reflected, I can support that. And I can also reiterate, you know, what I've said many a time. You definitely need to, as a planning commission, whenever you have anything come before you, it's pretty important to, if it is in a restricted area, say no to anything that isn't restricted area, because you'll get sued otherwise. So all the more reason to where if it is something that needs to be done, then yeah, take a look at it. But no, that was not ever referenced before, which I'm not sure why.
Madam Chairperson, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Don't need that.